Last time we finished the first council, so we'll begin with the second council today. It's on page 115. Now, when was the first council held? 3 months after the death of the Buddha. How many monks participated? How many monks participated? 500. And how long did it last? How many months? 7 months. So after the first council, the teachings of the Buddha were handed down from teacher to pupil by word of mouth. As time went on, there were some monks who had different opinions about some points in the Vinaya, and their opinions became prominent about 100 years after the death of the Buddha. So the other monks who wanted to keep the Buddha's teachings as they were handed down from generation to generation held another council. So that second council was held at Vesali in the 10th year of King Kalasoka's reign, 100 years after the Parinibbana of the Buddha. So at that time in Vesali, many shameless bhikkhus of the YG clan claimed that the following 10 points were not unlawful. Now please read the footnote. All these points pertain to Vinaya discipline. Some of them may not be intelligible to a lay reader. So I will not explain to you in detail all these 10 points, because you need to have a basic knowledge of Vinaya to understand all these 10 points. Now the first one, Sengilona Kappa, it's a Pali word. It is fit to use salt in horns, etc., in order to season unsalted foods. Actually, it is not lawful. It is not lawful to keep salt in horns and then the next day or on the days following to put that salt in the other food and eat it. The second one, Dwangula Kappa. It is fit to eat food as long as the sun's shadow has not passed the meridian by more than 2 fingers' breadth. Now monks are not allowed to eat after 12 or after noon. And then they said here that it is all right to eat as long as the sun's shadow has not passed the meridian by more than 2 fingers. Now, there were no clocks during in the olden times, and so they knew time by looking at the shadow. So if you stand in the sun, and then you will see the shadow, and then the sun moves slowly, and so the shadow also moves slowly. So they said a monk can eat until the shadow is about 4 finger breadths. 4 finger breadths past the meridian point. I wanted to find out how long it will be for the shadow to go 4 finger breadths. But I live in Delhi city, and we haven't seen the sun for about 10 days now. So let us say that it takes about 10 minutes. Not exact, but let us say that. So they said, in terms of the clocks, what they said was a monk can eat even past 12 noon, so until about 10 past 12 he can eat. But in fact, it is not lawful to eat after 12. And there are some people who think that if a monk begins to eat before 12, then he could eat on even past 12, and that is not correct. So at whatever time the monk begins to eat, he must finish at or just before 12. The third one is difficult to understand. Kamantara kappa. It is fit for a bhikkhu who has already finished his meal to eat another meal without going through the due Vinaya rite if he intends to enter a village. If you don't understand, don't worry. So the next one, the fourth one, awasakapa. It is fit to perform the uposatha ceremony in separate buildings in the case of a large sima. Uposatha is one of the acts of Sangha. And when bhikkhus perform the acts of Sangha, all bhikkhus in one area must assemble to one place. All the bhikkhus living in that area must assemble to one place and perform the act of Sangha. But here they said that if the area is too big, then two groups of Sangha can perform the act of Sangha at the same time in different places, and that is not lawful. And number 5, anumati kappa. It is fit to perform any Vinaya ceremony first and then take the consent of the absent bhikkhu. Now when monks perform the acts of Vinaya, they must get 100% agreement. And the agreement must be of those who are present at the performance. But there may be some monks who are not present at the performance. And here they said, we can just perform the Sangha act without their consent. And when they come, then we can get their consent. And according to them, it is lawful, but actually it is not. 6. Achinakapa. It is fit to conform to the practice of teachers and preceptors. And this 6th point is not all unlawful, because the practice of teachers and preceptors, some practice may be lawful and some may be unlawful. So what is lawful can be followed, but what is unlawful must not be followed. Number 7. Amatita kappa. It is fit for a bhikkhu who has finished his meal to drink that milk which has changed its original state but has not yet become curd without getting the due Vinaya right time. I will skip this too. So the next one, jalogi kappa. It is fit to drink unfermented palm wine, but it is not lawful, because whether it is fermented or not, if it is wine or liquor or whatever, then monks are not allowed to drink. And number 9, adasaka nisidana kappa. It is fit to use mats without fringes. Nisidana means a cloth to sit upon. It is actually not a mat. It's a mat made of grass or something. It is not that thing. Nisidana here is some piece of cloth to sit upon. And that nisidana must have fringes or borders. Now, something like this, but a nisidana must have some fringes here, and they must be cut like this, and the monk sits on it when he eats. So he sits on it and then take this part on his lap, so that when he eats, his robes will not get soiled if he drops some food. And that kind of cloth is no longer used nowadays. Actually, that nisidana can be used as an underwear too. Number 10, Jada Rupa Dikapa. It is fit to accept gold and silver. So monks are not to accept gold and silver, money or whatever. So when you offer money to Syara Upanira, what did he do? You have to deposit it in the hands of the Kapiya, right? And then you have to say something to him. Bhante, I have deposited some amount of money with the Kapiya, and if you want something, then please ask him or something like that. So these are the 10 points, all on Vinaya. Now, on these 10 points, there was dispute. And we must note that dispute was not on the Dhamma, not on the teachings in the discourses, but on Vinaya. So with regard to Dhamma, there was no dispute at that time. So the Venerable Yasa, who came to hear of these heretical teachings, resolved, even at the cost of his life, to nip them in the bud. He succeeded. The Venerable Rewata, who was questioned about them, pronounced that they were all unlawful. Ultimately, in the presence of 8 distinguished Arahants who had assembled at Walukarama in Vesali, the Venerable Sabbakami, the most senior Arahant, being 120 years from his Upasambhada, that means from his monkhood, questioned by the Venerable Rewata, adjudged that they were all unlawful according to the Vinaya. Now the Venerable Sabbakami was 120 years from his Upasambhada at that time. That means a person can be ordained as a monk at the age of 20. So if we add 20 to that, he was about 140 years old at that time. And he actually saw the Buddha. He was alive when the Buddha died. So they were decided to be unlawful. Then the Venerable Rewata chose 700 distinguished Arahants to hold a council in order to protect the Dhamma. This second council lasted 8 months. King Kala Soga acted as the royal patron. The Venerable Sabbakami was the presiding Thera. Now, in one chronicle called Mahavansa, it is said that the Venerable Rewata was the chief elder at that time. That means he was the presiding elder. And in the commentary to Vinaya, it is said that Yasa presided at the second Buddhist Council. Now, the second council lasted for how many months? 8 months. And how many Arahants participated? 700. And when was it held? 100 years after the death of the Buddha. So at that time there were other monks who lived at the time of the Buddha. Amongst the assembled Arahants, Sabbakami, Salha, Rewata, Kujasovita, Yasa, Sambhuta, and Sanavasika, all pupils of the Venerable Ananda, and Vasabhagamika and Sumana, pupils of the Venerable Anuruddha, had the good fortune to live in the Buddha's own time. So those elders participated in the second Buddhist Council, and they lived during the time of the Buddha, and they lived up to the time of the second Buddhist Council. So at the second Buddhist Council, what has been recorded at the first Buddhist Council, all the texts, all the teachings of the Buddha were reaffirmed and accepted as the authentic teachings of the Buddha, and then the teachers handed down to their pupils, and again to the next generation and the next generation and so on. And then 136 years later, there was another council. And that council was held during the time of the King Asoka. I hope you have heard of King Asoka. He was very, very famous among the Buddhists. Not only among the Buddhists, but also throughout the world. He was renowned as a very great king who gave up warfare while he was victorious in war. So he was the only king in the history of mankind who gave up war while he was still conquering. The conversion of King Dhammasoka was a very great asset to Buddhism. First, he was not a Buddhist. Later, after he became king, he met a young novice. We read about him later. And he met a young novice, and that novice taught Dhamma to him, and he became a Buddhist. After he became a Buddhist, he supported the Sasana. So the Sasana grew up in importance and numbers. That means the number of monks also increased. At that time, there were those who belonged to other religious sects, not Buddhist, but other religious sects. But they found it difficult, say, to keep themselves alive, because Buddhism became so popular that people thought of supporting Buddhist monks only. So in order to be alive, they joined the Buddhist order. They became monks, or they were not lawfully ordained, but they just put on the robes themselves and then claimed to be monks. But the good monks knew that those who joined the order later were not real monks. So these good monks refused to perform uposatha with them. You know, the one act of Sangha. So it is said that at the monastery built by King Asoka, it is called Asoka Rama. That means the monastery of Asoka. At that monastery, uposatha ceremony was not performed for 7 years because the Sangha is not pure. It's mixed with bogus monks, and so the good monks refused to perform uposatha. And so there was no uposatha ceremony for 7 years at the great monastery. At that time there was an elder called Moggalliputta Tessa. Now he saw that monks refused to have uposatha with the other bogus monks, and he also saw that this dispute will become worse. And he thought to himself, if I live with them, I will not be able to solve this problem. So he left that place and he went to another place and lived alone. Now, the king heard that uposatha was not performed at the monastery, and so he sent one of his ministers to go to the monastery and ask the monks to solve the problem and to perform uposatha. But that minister was not quite sure what to do, but he was afraid to ask the king. So he went to other ministers and asked them. Then those ministers told him that when you are sent to a district to suppress the rebellion, that means you have to kill the rebels. So here also, you go to the monastery and ask the monks to perform uposatha, and if any monk refuses to perform uposatha, you just kill him. He was told like that. So he went to the monastery and then asked the monks, solve this dispute and please perform uposatha. Then the monks said, no, we cannot perform uposatha with these bogus monks. So he began to cut the heads of the monks one by one, kill them. Now, King Asoka had a brother who had become a monk, and that monk was among those monks. And when he saw the minister killing the other monks, he went to where he was killing, and when his turn came, when the turn was for the minister to kill the king's brother, the minister dared not kill him because he was the king's brother. So he put on the sword and then went back to the king, and he told the king, sir, following your order, I went to the monastery and killed monks who would not perform uposatha, and then there was your brother. So what shall I do? So when the king heard this, he was very surprised and very frightened, because he did not order his minister to kill monks, but the minister has done that. So the king was worried about his akusala, and so he asked monks, and some monks answered that you are responsible because he was acting under your order. Then the other monk said, you had no intention that the minister killed the monks, so your mind is pure, and so you are not responsible, but he is responsible because he killed. Then he went to other monks and asked, and they said, both of you are responsible. So he was unable to come to a decision. He had doubt about that. And other monks told him that only Mogli Buddha can dispel the king's doubt. So he sent for the Venerable Mogli Buddha who had gone to another place. Now, I think you understand what kind of a doubt King Dhammasoka entertained when you read the last paragraph on page 117. Now, it was at this time that King Dhammasoka entertained a doubt about thoughtless act done by an irresponsible minister. And he was told that Arahant Mogli Buddha would be able to clear his doubt. So the king sent word to the Arahant, but he would not come. That was because the minister said, the king wants you to come to the capital city. So when they said the king wants you to come, he would not go. So the other people advised the king to say in another way. So he said what this time? Bhante, the sasana is now getting worse. So please be my companion to protect the sasana, and so please come to the capital. So at that time he agreed to go, and then he went to the city. So when the elder arrived at the city, the king received him with due honor and put him up at his garden, not as Asokarama as mentioned in the book. There is some inaccuracy here. So the king took him to his garden and offered food to him there, and the elder stayed at that garden for 7 days. And during those 7 days, he taught the king about which is Dhamma and which is not Dhamma. Now, in the commentary, it is not said that the king stayed with him at the garden. It only said that the elder, staying at the garden for 7 days, taught the king Dhamma. The king might go back to his palace during the night and then came back in the morning and studied Dhamma with the elder. On the seventh day, the king had all monks assembled at the monastery. At the monastery he had donated. At the monastery, and then let the monks of the same opinion sit together. And then he asked them about what is Dhamma, what are the teachings of the Buddha. And those bogus monks could not answer his questions, and so they were found out. And so they were expelled from the order. When the Sangha was pure, after the expelling of the undesirable monks, the Sangha performed the Uposatha ceremony at the monastery for the first time in 7 years. And the Arahant Moggaliputta availed himself of this opportunity to hold the third council in order to protect the Dhamma and the Sasana. So 1,000 Arahants participated in the council, which was held at Asokarama in Pataliputra, or modern Patna, in the 18th year of King Asoka's reign, about 236 years after the Parinirvana of the Buddha. The Venerable Moggaliputta was the presiding Thera, and it was he who was responsible for the composition of the Kathavatu Pakarana, one of the 7 books of the Abhidhamma at this august assembly. So, before the third council, the book called Kathavatu was in a very, very brief form, maybe just something like a table of contents or something like that. But at the third Buddhist council, Moggaliputta added this book to the books of Abhidhamma. And in this book, all the different views, or to him, all the heretical views were examined and then decided to be the false views. And so the Kathavatu, although it belongs to Abhidhamma Pitaka, is not like other Abhidhamma books. It is actually a debate, a book on the great debate at the Third Buddhist Council. And it is very difficult to understand. Sometimes we don't know who was saying what. Now, how many months did it last? You don't find that in the book. He forgot to mention it. 9 months. So the Third Buddhist Council was held about 236 years after the death of the Buddha, and it was held in Pataliputra, or modern Patna, and 1,000 monks participated, and this council lasted 9 months. So these are the 3 Buddhist councils recorded in the chronicles and also in the commentaries. Now, with regard to these commentaries, we must understand at what time the council was held, at what place, how many monks participated, and how long each lasted. Now, once again, the first Buddhist council, when?
3 months after.
3 months after the death of the Buddha. Where? Because it's not mentioned here. It's on the mountain called Kijakuda. The mountain is still in India now. It's called Kijakuda, the vulture peak. So on that mountain there was a big cave, and in that big cave, and also there was King Ajatasattu put up a very magnificent building outside of that big cave, and and the first Buddhist council was held there. Or we can just say it was held in Rajagaha. Actually, not inside the city of Rajagaha, but near the city of Rajagaha. And how many participated? 500. How many months? 7 months. Then the second council, when? 100 years. And where? Visali. Yeah. How many months? 700 months. And how many months? 8 months? Yeah. And then the third council? 236 years after the death of the Buddha. 1,000 monks participated, and 9 months. And where? Patna. Pataliputra or Patna. Good. So these are the 3 councils recorded in the chronicles and in the Vinaya commentary. Now, although not mentioned in this book, you should know the other councils too. So I'll tell you about those councils.